what I've certainly noticed, and I'm sure everybody has, is that the positive energy that allows a high achiever to reach the top in, let's say, the corporate space, or in as you mentioned there, the medical space, where you become a GP or a hospital doctor. It takes years to train. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of effort. What tends to happen is that they pour all of that positive energy into that one task without apportioning it to other areas of their life. So therefore, sometimes their commitments to their family, friends weakens. In other words, they're not pouring enough of positive energy towards that, but also they're not pouring enough positive energy towards their health. And that's why you quite often go to a doctor and they look ill. They're out of shape, they're overweight, and you think to yourself, I'm now seeking advice about health from you, who is clearly not in a good, healthy state. And then you see people that have reached the top, business directors, some of whom have got a healthy balance, but many of whom haven't, because their total energy is around, their life becomes that job. And it's so easy to do, because that's how our brains can trick us and lead us to this. And then that's where stress comes in. And then the impact of stress has a significant effect further on down the line. Let's move on then. I mean, we've touched on this already with stress, but I wonder whether it's worth looking at this further. And the impact of all types of stress, because we know stress can be good for us, small bouts of it. In Harvard, Sean Aker has done lots of studies about this. We know this. Short bouts of stress are good for us, but it's when it's long-term, chronic, etc. Yeah. So over to you on that one.
Okay. I think if we look at stress, which is a word that's used quite often and in so many contexts, and I think if we look at stress, we need to look at the stressors and the stress response, because stress is such a good thing. I mean, that's the reason why you're alive, because you have systems in place in your body which respond to certain stresses, and the main part, or the main thing they want to do, is to direct energy, to generate energy and direct the energy to the system that needs it. For example, if, like what we're doing now, we're talking, we're using our brain. So if you're having like a speech or something, you're using your brain, and your stress response is quite high. If I would measure my heart rate variability right now, I would see that I have a really high stressor, which is not a bad thing, because it translates to having more energy in our brain and doing the task and doing and having a solution for the problem. But the thing is that from an evolutionary standpoint, what we had like a stressor. Maybe, for example, it's the example we always use, but it's still a good example. So if you're walking through the woods and somehow there's a tiger jumping out of the bush, what happens is all your stress axes, they ramp up, and your sympathetic system is firing, your hormonal stress axis is firing. And what it leads to is being able to either run away or climb on a tree, or if you're pretty good, maybe fight the lion or the tiger. But after that, the stress is over. Either you ran away and you're safe, or you climbed the tree and you're safe, or you got eaten. But either way, the stress is over. And that's from an evolutionary standpoint, what our system is trained to do and how it can work. But the environment we're living in now is totally different. We're having all kinds of stressors. It's not just having fear when you're walking through a wood that maybe a tiger comes out of the bush, but it's all our media around us. It's our environment at job. It's the toxins in our water and in the air pollution. we are having all kind of stresses, all kind of toxins, which all lead to the same stress response. So that's the only thing our body knows. It didn't have the time to adapt, the time to learn. So we're always having the same stress response, and that's the reason why we get why we become sick, or why we can become sick, because the stress axis, it doesn't shut down properly again. So we don't have the ability to shut it down. And if you're having a continuous stressors for quite a while, the systems get out of whack. So maybe your sympathetic nervous system is still firing, but your hormonal system doesn't do his job properly again, and they get desynchronized, and that's doing the harmful things to the body, because all of our systems are out of whack.
And typically, what have you seen? Let's say you've got to that point where your system is out of whack, as you say, more sympathetic, and for those watching, when we talk about that, we're talking about the autonomic nervous system, which can be split into two: the sympathetic part of the nervous system and the parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is everything to do with rest, digest, relaxation, and the sympathetic is the opposite: increase in heart rate, blood pressure. And of course, it stands to reason. You know, you look at the corporate world in particular, those with high blood pressure, unfortunately, there are, I laugh, but I'm laughing kind of because it seems so ridiculous that we shouldn't allow ourselves to get to that point. But blood pressure is rife amongst those in the corporate space. So what else do you then, or have you seen, and what else could people see when they are in that state and only going downhill unless they do something about it?
Yes, so what we do see is it always has kind of the same pathway. So if you look at having like a desynchronized stress axis, and having this the same environment all of the time, or the same thought patterns which lead to those stresses, what then happens is that your body still wants to generate energy, and what it does is, for example, it opens the barriers in the gut to extract like water, sugar, and salts, which then translate into energy. That's what our evolution taught us to do. So, for example, a lot of people have problems with their gut when they're having stressful time for quite a while. Those are the symptoms that they come to us, because they're having problem with their gut, which then leads to maybe fatigue, foggy head, which tells us that there's another connection between the gut and the brain again. So it's always that we are lacking energy, and somehow in one of the systems is not able to keep that energy up. And if we talk about gut as one of the main factors, which then leads to an activation of the immune system, because when the gut barrier opens, all which is in your gut, like maybe bacterial, other pathogens, they get presented to the immune system. And then our immune system responds, because all our immune system learned to do in evolution was to protect us against infections. And the same thing with stress again. If it gets presented and it can like solve the problem, the infection is gone, it returns to normal. But if our barriers are always open and our immune system is presented with pathogens or other stuff, like maybe food particles, which then lead to allergies, which is one of the reasons many people have allergies, then it stays active. And when our immune system is active, it only knows survival mode. So, which then leads to maybe a low-grade inflammation in your body, and our immune system is taking all the energy. That's one of the main symptoms we have as a result of stress, chronic stress, is a lack of energy, being fatigued all the time, having a foggy head. And those are all symptoms connected to the stress axis, opening of the barriers, and activation of the immune system.